The night was colder than usual on the barren moon of Valdraxis, a desolate world orbiting a dying star. The sky shimmered with hues of violet and crimson as winds whipped through jagged cliffs that stretched endlessly into the horizon. Amidst this alien wasteland stood Captain Ryland Drake, clad in his worn-out combat armor, his rifle slung over one shoulder. He had been sent here to investigate strange energy readings, but so far all he'd found was silence, and an eerie sense that he wasn't alone. Ryland adjusted the visor on his helmet, scanning the terrain for movement. His boots crunched against the rocky ground as he moved cautiously forward, every muscle tense, every nerve alert. Suddenly, there it was, a faint rustling sound behind him. He spun around, weapon raised, only to see nothing but shadows dancing across the jagged rocks. "Relax, Drake," he muttered to himself under his breath. "Probably just another glitch in your suit sensors." But then something caught his eye, a flicker of light glowing softly from a crevice nearby. It wasn't natural. No starlight or moonlight could penetrate this deep into the canyon walls. Curiosity tugged at him like an invisible hand pulling him closer. Slowly, he approached, keeping his weapon trained ahead. As he drew nearer, the glow intensified, revealing what appeared to be some kind of crystalline structure embedded within the rock face. Before he could examine it further, a sharp crack echoed through the air. Instinctively, Ryland dove to the side just as a bolt of blue energy sizzled past where he'd been standing moments before. Rolling onto his feet, he scanned the area frantically, searching for the source of the attack. That's when he saw her, or rather it. Standing atop a ridge above him was a figure unlike anything he'd ever encountered. She was tall, graceful, and radiated an otherworldly beauty. Her skin shimmered like liquid silver under the dim light, and her eyes glowed with an ethereal golden hue. A long cloak made of iridescent material fluttered around her slender frame, giving her an almost regal appearance. For a moment, they simply stared at each other, human soldier and alien being locked in a silent standoff. Then she spoke, her voice melodic yet commanding, carrying a hint of amusement despite the tension in the air. "You saved my life once, human," she said, tilting her head slightly as if trying to place him. "Though I doubt you remember." Ryland blinked, lowering his weapon ever so slightly. "I what? Saved your life?" he stammered, confusion written all over his face. "Lady, I think you've got the wrong guy. I've never even met anyone who looks like you until now." A soft chuckle escaped her lips, though it carried a trace of sadness beneath its surface. "Perhaps not consciously," she replied cryptically. "But fate has a way of weaving threads we cannot see." Her words left him more baffled than reassured. Before he could press her for answers, however, the ground beneath them trembled violently, sending both stumbling to maintain their balance. From the darkness emerged several hulking creatures, their bodies covered in thick armored plates and glowing red eyes fixed menacingly on the pair. They moved with surprising speed, closing the distance between them in mere seconds. "Great timing," Ryland muttered sarcastically, raising his rifle again. "Who are these guys?" "My sister's loyal enforcers," the woman answered grimly, unsheathing a blade-like weapon from her belt. Its edge hummed with energy, casting a pale light around them. "And they won't stop until they bring me back, or kill us both." Without waiting for further explanation, Ryland opened fire, his bullets ricocheting harmlessly off the creature's armor. Cursing under his breath, he switched tactics, aiming for exposed joints instead. One of the beasts roared in pain as a shot struck true, causing it to falter momentarily. But there were too many of them, and they kept coming relentlessly. The woman fought alongside him with a fluid grace that bordered on supernatural. Every swing of her blade cut cleanly through flesh and metal alike, leaving trails of sparks in its wake. Despite her elegance in battle, Ryland couldn't help but notice the strain in her movements. Whatever ordeal she'd endured before finding him clearly hadn't left her unscathed. As the fight dragged on, Ryland realized they couldn't hold out forever. Outnumbered and outgunned, their chances of survival dwindled with each passing second. Just as despair began creeping into his thoughts, the woman suddenly grabbed his arm and yanked him toward the glowing crystal formation behind them. "This way," she shouted urgently. "Trust me." He hesitated for half a heartbeat before deciding he didn't have much choice. Together, they sprinted toward the shimmering structure, dodging attacks and narrowly avoiding fatal blows along the way. When they reached it, the woman placed her palm against the crystal, which responded by pulsing brightly. A portal of swirling light erupted before them, casting surreal patterns across the battlefield. "Go," she urged, shoving him gently but firmly toward the opening. "I'll hold them off." "No way," Rylan shot back, planting his feet firmly. "I'm not leaving without." His protest was cut short as she shoved him again, harder this time, forcing him to stumble backward into the portal. The last thing he saw before being engulfed by blinding light was her determined expression as she turned to face the advancing horde alone. When Rylan regained consciousness, he found himself lying on soft grass beneath a canopy of unfamiliar stars. For a moment, he thought perhaps the entire encounter had been a dream. That is, until he noticed the faint scars etched into his armor from the battle. Groaning, he sat up and surveyed his surroundings. He was no longer on Valdraxis. The landscape here was lush and vibrant, filled with towering trees that seemed to glow faintly in the twilight. "Where am I?" he murmured aloud, rubbing his temples. His head throbbed painfully, and memories of the mysterious woman flooded back to him. Who was she? Why had she risked her life to save his? And most importantly, how could he possibly find her again? Unbeknownst to him, hidden among the foliage, golden eyes watched his every move. Days passed, or maybe weeks. Time felt distorted in this strange new world. Rylan wandered aimlessly, scavenging food and water wherever he could find it, while trying to piece together clues about the woman who had disappeared after saving him. Each night, he replayed their brief encounter in his mind, searching for answers in her cryptic words. What did she mean by saying he'd saved her life? Was it possible they'd crossed paths before, without him realizing it? One evening, as he sat by a small campfire nursing a makeshift meal of roasted fruit, a rustling sound startled him. Whipping around, he expected another ambush, but instead, he froze in disbelief. There she was, emerging from the shadows like a ghost, her silver skin reflecting the firelight. She looked exhausted, her once pristine cloak torn and stained, but her presence was no less commanding. "You followed me," she stated flatly, crossing her arms. "Well, technically, I didn't know where here was until now," Rylan retorted, standing up cautiously. "Look, whoever you are, you owe me some answers. Who are you? Where are we? And why do those monsters keep chasing you?" She sighed deeply, stepping closer to the fire. For the first time since they'd met, she seemed hesitant, almost vulnerable. "My name is Lyria," she began slowly. Was the crown princess of the planet Earthes. My sister, Queen Silvara, believes I betrayed our people and sentenced me to exile. Those creatures serve her, hunting me relentlessly to ensure I never return home." Rylan frowned, digesting the information. "Betrayal? Did you?" Lyria shook her head vehemently. "No. I discovered a truth about our kingdom that threatened everything my sister holds dear. Rather than face it, she chose to silence me. But I refused to let her erase history for her own gain." There was a raw determination in her voice that resonated with Rylan. He'd seen enough corrupt leaders in his own lifetime to understand the weight of such accusations. Still, skepticism lingered in the back of his mind. "All right, say I believe you. What does any of this have to do with me? How could I possibly have saved your life?" Lyria hesitated again, her gaze dropping to the flames. "It happened years ago during a diplomatic mission to Earth. My ship crash-landed near your military base, and you helped me escape detection. You didn't know who I was then. To you, I was just another civilian caught in the chaos. But because of your actions, I survived long enough to uncover the secrets that led to my downfall." Rylan stared at her, struggling to reconcile her story with his own foggy memories. He vaguely recalled an incident involving a crashed spacecraft during his early days in the service, but the details were murky at best. Could it really be true? Had he unknowingly played a part in shaping the fate of an entire alien civilization? Before he could respond, Lyria straightened up abruptly, her expression turning grave. "We don't have time for reminiscing. They've found us." Sure enough, distant growls echoed through the forest, growing louder with each passing second. Shadows moved between the trees, and the unmistakable glow of red eyes pierced the darkness. Rylan cursed under his breath, grabbing his rifle once more. "How do they always find us?" "They track my essence," Lyria explained tersely, already drawing her humming blade. "As long as I live, they will never stop." "Well, that's just great," Rylan muttered, taking aim at the encroaching horde. "Any bright ideas, princess?" Lyria smirked faintly despite the dire situation. "Just one. Follow me." With that, She darted into the woods, moving faster than Rylan thought possible. He followed close behind, heart pounding as branches whipped at his face and legs. Behind them, the creatures gave chase, their thunderous footsteps shaking the ground beneath their feet. After what felt like hours, Lyria skidded to a halt beside a massive tree whose roots twisted upward like gnarled fingers. In its center lay a hollowed-out cavity large enough to conceal them both. Without hesitation, she pulled Rylan inside, pressing a finger to her lips to signal silence. Moments later, the creatures stormed past, sniffing the air and snarling in frustration. Their leader, a particularly grotesque specimen with jagged horns protruding from its skull, stopped directly in front of their hiding spot, tilting its head as if sensing something amiss. Rylan held his breath, praying the adrenaline coursing through his veins wouldn't give them away. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the beast growled impatiently and signaled for its pack to move on. Only when their footfalls faded completely did Lyria release her grip on Rylan's arm, exhaling sharply in relief. "That was too close," she whispered, leaning back against the damp wall of their makeshift shelter. Rylan nodded, still catching his breath. "Yeah, well, next time, maybe pick a less conspicuous hiding spot." Despite the gravity of their situation, Lyria chuckled softly, the sound oddly comforting amidst the chaos. "Next time, I'll try to remember that." They sat in companionable silence for a while, listening to the sounds of the forest gradually returning to normal. Eventually, Rylan broke the quiet. "So, what's the plan? We can't keep running forever." Lyria glanced at him, her golden eyes gleaming with resolve. "No, we can't. Which is why we need allies. There's a rebel faction on Earthes fighting against my sister's regime. If we can reach them, they might be able to help us turn the tide." "And how exactly do we get to Earthes?" Rylan asked skeptically. "Last I checked, interstellar travel isn't exactly my forte." A mischievous smile tugged at the corners of Lyria's lips. "Leave that part to me. All I need is a pilot willing to take a few risks." Rylan groaned, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "Why do I get the feeling I'm going to regret agreeing to this?" Lyria laughed outright this time, the sound warm and genuine. "Because you probably will. But trust me, human. This journey will change everything." As dawn broke over the horizon, painting the sky in fiery hues, Rylan couldn't shake the feeling that she was right. Whatever lay ahead, one thing was certain. Their fates were intertwined now, bound together by secrets, danger, and an unspoken promise to fight for justice, even if it meant defying entire galaxies. Their journey to Earthes began aboard a sleek, triangular vessel hidden deep within a cavern Lyria led them to. The craft hummed with an energy unlike anything Rylan had ever experienced, its surface smooth and metallic yet warm to the touch. As they boarded, Rylan marveled at the advanced technology surrounding him. Control panels that lit up with a mere gesture, holographic displays projecting star charts across the cockpit, and seats that molded themselves to fit perfectly. "This is your ride?" he asked, still skeptical but undeniably impressed. "You weren't kidding about having resources." "It belonged to my father," Lyria explained, her tone tinged with nostalgia as she settled into the pilot's chair. "He designed it himself long before." Her voice trailed off, and she shook her head, refocusing on the task at hand. "Let's just say it's built for speed and stealth. Two things we'll need plenty of." With practiced ease, she activated the engines, and the ship lifted off the ground silently, disappearing into the morning mist. Outside the viewport, the lush greenery of their temporary sanctuary shrank rapidly until it blended seamlessly with the vast expanse of space. For the first time since arriving on this strange planet, Rylan felt a pang of awe mixed with unease. Space travel was something he'd only read about in mission briefings. It wasn't supposed to feel so real, so immediate. "So, how far is Earthes?" he ventured, gripping the edge of his seat as the ship accelerated. "Several parsecs," Lyria replied casually, adjusting course with a flick of her wrist. "But with this ship's capabilities, we should reach it within a standard day. Assuming, of course, we don't run into any complications." "Complications?" Rylan echoed dryly. "Of course. Because why wouldn't we?" Lyria smirked, glancing over her shoulder at him. "Relax, human. You're starting to sound like one of those overly cautious navigators my father used to employ. Sometimes you just have to trust the stars." "I'll trust the stars when they start shooting back less often," Rylan muttered under his breath, earning another laugh from Lyria. Despite the tension simmering beneath the surface, There was an undeniable camaraderie forming between them, a shared understanding forged in the crucible of survival. Hours passed uneventfully, the monotony broken only by occasional bursts of conversation or the hum of the ship's systems recalibrating. Rylan found himself studying Lyria more closely, noting the subtle changes in her demeanor as she piloted. There was a quiet confidence in her movements, a regality that transcended her current circumstances. Yet, beneath the polished exterior, he sensed a vulnerability, an awareness of the immense responsibility resting on her shoulders. At one point, unable to resist his curiosity any longer, he leaned forward and asked, "What exactly did you discover back on Earthes? The secret that got you exiled?" Lyria's hands paused briefly on the controls before resuming their steady rhythm. "It's complicated," she admitted, her voice softer now. "Our people have always believed that our prosperity stems from harmony with the cosmos, that our power comes from maintaining balance. But what I uncovered, it suggests otherwise. My sister has been manipulating ancient technologies to extend her reign, exploiting resources meant to sustain future generations. If word of this reaches the public, it would destroy her legitimacy entirely. And that's why she wants you dead," Rylan concluded grimly. "Because if anyone knows the truth, it's you." Lyria nodded. "Precisely. But I can't let her continue down this path. Not just for Earthes, but for the countless worlds she plans to subjugate in her quest for dominance." Rylan mulled over her words, feeling the weight of their implications settle heavily on his chest. This wasn't just about saving one princess or overthrowing one tyrant. It was about stopping a chain reaction that could ripple across galaxies. And somehow, inexplicably, he was smack dab in the middle of it. Before either of them could say more, the ship's alarms blared suddenly, startling them both. Red lights flashed across the cockpit as a warning message scrolled across the main display. "We've got company," Lyria announced tersely, her fingers flying over the controls. "2 vessels, closing fast." "Is it your sister's fleet?" Rylan asked, already reaching for his rifle. "No," she replied, narrowing her eyes at the sensor readings. "Worse, mercenaries, bounty hunters hired to retrieve me or eliminate me." "Fantastic," Rylan groaned, bracing himself as the ship rocked violently under the impact of incoming fire. "Guess trusting the stars doesn't work when someone's aiming at them." "Hold on," Lyria shouted, banking sharply to evade another volley. The G-forces pressed Rylan back into his seat as the ship spiraled through space, weaving erratically to dodge the relentless barrage. Peering out the viewport, Rylan caught glimpses of the pursuing ships. Sleek, angular designs painted matte black, blending seamlessly with the void. They fired again, and this time the blast grazed their hull, sending sparks flying inside the cockpit. "We're losing shields," Lyria called out, her jaw clenched with determination. "I need you to man the dorsal turret. Can you handle that?" "Are you serious?" Rylan exclaimed, incredulous. "I'm a soldier, not a pilot." "Then consider this on-the-job training," she shot back, gesturing toward a hatch leading to the lower deck. "Go, now." With no time to argue, Rylan scrambled to obey, descending into the narrow corridor below. The turret bay was cramped but functional, equipped with a rotating gun platform and targeting interface. Sliding into position, he activated the controls, bringing the weapon online just as another salvo struck the ship. "Gotcha," he muttered, locking onto one of the pursuers and firing a concentrated burst of plasma bolts. The enemy ship veered wildly, smoke trailing from its damaged wing, but it quickly recovered, retaliating with renewed ferocity. Back in the cockpit, Lyria fought to maintain control as the battle raged on. Sweat beaded on her forehead as she executed daring maneuvers, pushing the ship to its limits. Despite the chaos, a fierce grin spread across her face, a thrill of defiance igniting within her. Meanwhile, Rylan focused intently on his task, channeling every ounce of military training into precision targeting. One by one, he picked off the mercenaries' weapons arrays, disabling their ability to fire effectively. The second ship proved more resilient, however, deploying countermeasures that scattered his shots. Come on," he muttered, gritting his teeth as he adjusted his aim. Finally, a lucky strike pierced the enemy's engine core, sending it spiraling out of control before exploding in a brilliant flash of light. "Yes," Rylan cheered triumphantly, pumping his fist. "Take that, space scum." Up in the cockpit, Lyria allowed herself a brief moment of satisfaction as the remaining ship retreated, unwilling to press its luck further. Breathing heavily, she stabilized the ship's trajectory and initiated repairs to the damaged systems. "Well done, human," she commended, her voice laced with admiration. "You may not be a pilot, but you certainly know how to handle yourself in a fight." "Thanks," Rylan replied, climbing back up to join her. "But next time, maybe we stick to diplomacy?" Lyria laughed, the tension easing visibly from her posture. "Diplomacy rarely works when dealing with mercenaries. Besides, I think I prefer your style." As the ship continued its journey toward Earthes, the bond between them grew stronger, forged not only by shared peril but also by mutual respect. Neither could predict what awaited them at their destination. But one thing was clear. Together, they stood a chance against whatever challenges lay ahead. When they finally arrived at Earthes, the sight that greeted them was both breathtaking and haunting. The planet shimmered like a jewel suspended in the vastness of space, its atmosphere awash with swirling auroras of turquoise and gold. Towering spires rose from the surface, glinting in the sunlight like shards of glass. It was a vision of beauty and sophistication. Yet beneath the veneer of splendor lurked an undeniable shadow of oppression. "This is it," Lyria murmured, her voice tinged with bittersweet emotion as she gazed at her homeworld through the viewport. Earthes, once a beacon of hope and unity, now a prison ruled by fear. Rylan studied her profile, noting the mixture of pride and sorrow etched into her features. "It's stunning," he admitted, "but I can see why you want to change it." Lyria nodded, her resolve hardening. "We'll land in the outskirts of the capital city, Zithra. From there, we'll make contact with the rebels. Be prepared, they won't trust easily, especially not outsiders." "No offense taken," Rylan quipped, checking his gear one last time. "I've dealt with worse receptions." The descent into Earthes's atmosphere was smoother than expected, thanks to Lyria's expert piloting. They touched down in a secluded valley surrounded by dense forests, the ship camouflaged by native flora that emitted a faint bioluminescent glow. Stepping outside, Rylan took a deep breath, the air crisp and tinged with an unfamiliar sweetness. "Stay close," Lyria instructed, activating a cloaking device on her wrist. "Security patrols are frequent, and we can't afford to be seen." They moved swiftly through the underbrush, Lyria leading the way with practiced precision. Every so often, she paused to scan their surroundings, ensuring they remained undetected. Despite the serene environment, Rylan couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. He imagined eyes lurking behind every tree, ears attuned to their every step. After nearly an hour of careful navigation, they reached the edge of the forest, where the sprawling metropolis of Zithra loomed in the distance. The cityscape was a dazzling juxtaposition of ancient architecture and futuristic innovation. Domed structures adorned with intricate carvings standing alongside sleek skyscrapers. Hovercrafts zipped overhead, casting fleeting shadows on the cobblestone streets below. "Looks peaceful enough," Rylan commented, observing the bustling activity. "Hard to believe it's hiding so much ugliness." "Appearances can be deceiving," Lyria replied gravely. "Follow me. The rebel hideout is located beneath the old marketplace. We'll need to blend in." Donning disguises provided by Lyria, a hooded cloak for Rylan and a simple tunic for herself, they ventured into the heart of the city. The marketplace teemed with life, vendors calling out their wares while citizens bartered animatedly. Exotic fruits, shimmering fabrics, and peculiar gadgets lined the stalls, creating a sensory overload for Rylan. "Stick close," Lyria reminded him, weaving through the crowd with effortless grace. "And try not to draw attention." Easier said than done, Rylan thought ruefully as he nearly collided with a vendor displaying a tray of glittering gemstones. Ducking his head, he muttered an apology and hurried after Lyria, who had already disappeared into the throng. Eventually, they reached a nondescript alleyway tucked between two towering buildings. At first glance, it appeared abandoned, but Lyria approached a specific section of the wall and pressed her palm against it. With a soft click, a hidden panel slid open, revealing a staircase descending into darkness. "After you," she gestured, motioning for Rylan to enter. The passageway led them to a vast underground chamber illuminated by soft, pulsating lights embedded in the ceiling. The air buzzed with quiet activity, rebels moving about purposefully, some tinkering with weapons, others poring over maps and data screens. Upon seeing Lyria, several figures rushed forward, expressions ranging from disbelief to cautious optimism. "Princess Lyria," one of them exclaimed, bowing low. We thought you were lost to us. I'm here now, Lyria assured them, her voice steady and authoritative. And I've brought help. All eyes turned to Rylan, who shifted uncomfortably under their scrutiny. Hi, he offered lamely, raising a hand in greeting. Name's Rylan. Nice to meet you all. Murmurs rippled through the group, skepticism evident in their tones. One particularly burly rebel stepped forward, crossing his arms skeptically. A human? Really? What use could he possibly be? Before Rylan could defend himself, Lyria intervened. He saved my life multiple times already. Trust me, he's proven his worth. The burly rebel grunted non-committally but backed off, allowing Lyria to address the group as a whole. We don't have much time. My sister's forces are tightening their grip, and the artifacts she seeks will destabilize not only our world but countless others. We must act quickly. What's the plan? Another rebel asked, stepping forward. Unlike the others, she wore a calm, calculating expression, her piercing green eyes assessing Rylan curiously. We infiltrate the royal palace, Lyria declared, unfazed by the gasps of disbelief that followed. Retrieve the artifacts, expose the truth, and rally the people to rise against Silvara. Infiltrate the palace? The burly rebel repeated incredulously. That's suicide. It's our only chance, Lyria insisted. With your support, we can succeed. The rebels exchanged uneasy glances, weighing the risks against the potential rewards. Finally, the green-eyed woman nodded decisively. Very well. We'll prepare the necessary equipment and intel. But mark my words, Princess. If this fails, it's on you. Lyria inclined her head solemnly. Understood. As the rebels dispersed to carry out their tasks, Rylan pulled Lyria aside. You sure about this? Breaking into a heavily guarded palace sounds like a recipe for disaster. If we don't try, everything I've fought for will be for nothing, Lyria replied firmly. Besides, I didn't drag you halfway across the galaxy to back down now. Rylan sighed, running a hand through his hair. All right, fine. But if we survive this, you owe me dinner at the fanciest restaurant on Earthies. Lyria laughed, the sound echoing warmly in the cavernous chamber. Deal. With preparations underway, the atmosphere grew tense yet charged with anticipation. Weapons were assembled, infiltration routes mapped out, and disguises tailored to perfection. As night fell over Zithara, the rebels gathered in the central hub, awaiting Lyria's final briefing. The palace is divided into 3 sectors, she explained, pointing to a holographic projection of the layout. We'll split into teams to cover more ground. Rylan and I will head directly for the artifact vault, while the others create diversions to draw attention away from us. Sounds straightforward enough, Rylan remarked, earning a few chuckles from the assembled rebels. What could go wrong? Plenty. The burly rebel muttered darkly, eliciting nervous laughter. Ignoring the comment, Lyria continued. Remember, stealth is key. Avoid confrontation whenever possible. Our goal is retrieval, not combat. Once the briefing concluded, the rebels dispersed to their designated positions, leaving Rylan and Lyria alone in the chamber. For a moment, they simply stood there, the weight of their impending mission settling heavily upon them. You ready for this? Rylan asked quietly, meeting her gaze. As ready as I'll ever be, Lyria replied, her golden eyes reflecting a mix of determination and apprehension. Together, we'll see this through. Side by side, they ascended the staircase, emerging into the cool night air. Above them, the stars twinkled indifferently, unaware of the storm brewing below. Hand in hand, they set off toward the palace, ready to confront whatever challenges awaited them within its gilded halls. The palace of Zithara loomed ominously against the night sky, its spires reaching toward the heavens like accusing fingers. Guards patrolled the perimeter with mechanical precision, their armored forms illuminated by the soft glow of lanterns strung along the walls. Inside, opulence reigned supreme. Marble floors polished to a mirror shine, tapestries depicting scenes of glory draped elegantly across grand halls, and chandeliers dripping with crystals casting prismatic reflections throughout the corridors. Yet beneath the veneer of luxury lay an undercurrent of tension, palpable even to the untrained eye. Servants scurried about nervously, avoiding eye contact with the imposing royal guards stationed at every corner. Whispers of dissent floated through the air, smothered quickly by the oppressive weight of Queen Silvara's iron rule. Rylan and Lyria slipped through the shadows, their movements deliberate and calculated. Clad in stolen uniforms, they blended seamlessly with the palace staff, their faces obscured by hoods pulled low over their foreheads. Each step took them deeper into the labyrinthine structure, closer to their objective, the artifact vault buried beneath the throne room. "This way," Lyria whispered, guiding Rylan down a narrow staircase concealed behind a tapestry. The air grew cooler as they descended, the scent of damp stone replacing the perfumed ambience of the upper levels. Torches lined the walls, casting flickering shadows that danced eerily across the rough-hewn surfaces. At the bottom, they encountered their first obstacle, a heavy iron door reinforced with intricate locking mechanisms. Lyria knelt before it, producing a small device from her cloak. "Stand guard," she instructed, her fingers deftly manipulating the gadget. Within moments, the lock clicked open, and the door swung inward with a soft creak. Beyond lay the vault, a cavernous chamber filled with relics of unimaginable power. Crystals pulsed with inner light, orbs levitated lazily in midair, and ancient texts rested atop pedestals carved from obsidian. At the center stood the object of their quest, a crystalline obelisk encased in a transparent barrier, its surface etched with runes that shimmered faintly. "There it is," Lyria breathed, her voice barely audible. "The heart of Earthes. With this, we can prove my sister's corruption and rally the people to our cause." "Then let's grab it and get out of here," Rylan urged, scanning the room for potential threats. "Something tells me we're not alone." As if on cue, a chilling laugh echoed through the chamber, reverberating off the stone walls. From the shadows emerged Queen Silvara herself, flanked by a cadre of elite enforcers. Her presence was magnetic, commanding attention with every step. Dressed in flowing robes adorned with jewels, she exuded an aura of authority tempered by cruelty. "Sister," she purred, her voice dripping with mockery, "how predictable of you to come crawling back. Did you truly think I wouldn't anticipate your arrival?" Lyria straightened, her expression hardening. "Silvara, release the heart or face the consequences." Silvara tilted her head, feigning innocence. "Consequences? From whom? Your ragtag band of rebels? Or perhaps this human companion you've acquired?" Rylan instinctively moved closer to Lyria, his hand resting on the hilt of his weapon. "Whatever game you're playing, it ends now," he growled, his tone laced with defiance. "Oh, I do adore spirited guests," Silvara remarked, clapping her hands mockingly. "But alas, I have no intention of sharing my treasures." "Enforcers, seize them." The guards surged forward, weapons drawn, their eyes glowing menacingly. Rylan reacted instantly, drawing his pistol and firing precise shots that incapacitated several opponents. Lyria joined the fray with equal ferocity, her humming blade slicing through armor and flesh alike. Sparks flew as metal clashed against metal, the cacophony of battle filling the chamber. Despite their skill, the odds were overwhelmingly against them. More enforcers poured into the room, forcing Rylan and Lyria to retreat toward the obelisk. Desperation fueled their movements as they fought tooth and nail to protect the artifact. "Cover me," Lyria shouted, ducking behind a pedestal to avoid a flurry of energy blasts. Pulling out a cylindrical device, she aimed it at the barrier surrounding the heart. A beam of light shot forth, striking the enclosure and causing it to flicker uncertainly. "Hurry!" Rylan yelled, grappling with a particularly stubborn foe. His muscles burned with exertion, but he refused to yield, knowing their survival depended on securing the artifact. With a final surge of effort, Lyria disabled the barrier, freeing the heart from its confines. She grasped it firmly, the runes flaring brighter as it responded to her touch. Sensing victory within reach, she turned to Rylan, who nodded encouragingly. "We need to move," he urged, covering her as she sprinted toward the exit. Together, they fought their way back through the swarm of enemies, using every trick in their arsenal to stay alive. Behind them, Silvara watched with mounting fury, her composure cracking under the strain. "Stop them!" she shrieked, her voice shrill with desperation. "Do not let them escape." But escape they did, bursting through the doorway and racing up the stairs as alarms blared throughout the palace. The sound of pursuit echoed behind them, spurring them onward. Reaching the main hall, they encountered the rebel team, who had successfully created diversions to draw attention away from the vault. "Took you long enough," the green-eyed rebel teased, tossing Rylan a fresh clip for his weapon. "Thought we might have to come rescue you." "Not today," Rylan replied, reloading swiftly. Let's finish this. United, the group charged toward freedom, cutting down anyone foolish enough to stand in their way. Explosions rocked the palace as sabotage operations triggered collapsing sections, buying them precious time to reach the rendezvous point outside the city. As dawn broke over Zitherus, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, they emerged victorious, battered but alive. The heart of Earthes pulsed steadily in Lyria's grasp, a symbol of hope amidst the ruins of tyranny. "This isn't over," Lyria declared, addressing the assembled rebels. "But today we've struck a blow against injustice. Together we will restore balance to our world and beyond." Cheers erupted from the crowd, bolstered by the knowledge that their fight was far from futile. Side by side, human and alien alike stood united, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As the rebellion gained momentum and Queen Silvara's grip on Earthes weakened, Lyria found herself at the forefront of a movement that was reshaping her world. The heart of Earthes had become a beacon of truth, exposing the corruption and exploitation that had plagued their society for decades. With each passing day, more citizens rallied to Lyria's cause, inspired by her courage and unwavering determination to restore balance. Rylan, too, had grown into his role as an unlikely hero. What began as a mission driven by survival and curiosity had transformed into something far greater. He stood shoulder to shoulder with Lyria, not just as her ally but as her confidant, her partner in every sense of the word. Their bond deepened with each shared victory and hardship, forged in fire yet tempered by moments of quiet understanding. Whether it was strategizing late into the night or exchanging light-hearted banter during rare respites, they became inseparable. A human soldier and an alien princess united by fate. One evening, as the rebel forces prepared for what promised to be the final assault on Zitherus' palace, Lyria and Rylan found themselves alone, atop a hill overlooking the city. The sky was painted in streaks of lavender and gold, the dying light casting long shadows across the landscape. For once, there was no immediate danger looming over them, no urgent decisions demanding their attention. It was simply the two of them, standing side by side under a canopy of stars. "You know," Rylan began, breaking the comfortable silence between them, "when I signed up for this whole space adventure thing, I didn't exactly picture myself leading a rebellion against an intergalactic tyrant." Lyria chuckled softly, turning her gaze toward him. Her golden eyes sparkled with amusement, and something deeper, something unspoken. "And here I thought humans were supposed to be predictable creatures. Yet you've surprised me at every turn." "Is that a compliment?" Rylan teased, raising an eyebrow. "It's gratitude," she replied sincerely, her tone softening. "I wouldn't have made it this far without you, Rylan. You've saved my life more times than I can count. Not just physically, but emotionally. You remind me why we're fighting, why all of this matters." Rylan felt a warmth spread through his chest, though he tried to play it cool. "Well, don't get too sentimental on me, princess. We've still got a war to win." "We do," Lyria agreed, her expression sobering slightly. Then, after a pause, she added, "But afterward, what happens then? For us?" The question hung in the air, heavy with possibility. Rylan hesitated, unsure how to articulate the thoughts swirling in his mind. Finally, he met her gaze, his voice steady despite the flutter of nerves in his stomach. "Afterward, I guess, I'd like to stick around. If you'll have me, that is." A smile tugged at the corners of Lyria's lips, soft and radiant. "You mean stay here with me? On Earthes?" "I mean wherever you are," Rylan clarified, his words sincere. "Earth feels like another lifetime ago. My home now. It's wherever you are." Lyria's smile widened, and for a moment, she looked almost shy, something Rylan rarely saw from the poised and regal princess. "That sounds perfect," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Then, emboldened, she took a step closer, closing the distance between them. "But there's one condition." "Oh," Rylan asked, raising an eyebrow again. "And what might that be?" "That you agree to let me plan our wedding," Lyria said, her tone teasing but her eyes gleaming with affection. "Because if I've learned anything about humans, it's that your ceremonies tend to lack elegance." Rylan burst out laughing, the sound echoing warmly in the twilight. "Deal. But only if you promise to let me sneak in some Earth traditions. Like cake. Lots and lots of cake." "Cake, huh?" Lyria mused, pretending to consider it. "I suppose I could make an exception for you." They shared a laugh, the tension melting away as they stood there, bathed in starlight. In that moment, amidst the chaos of rebellion and uncertainty, everything felt right. They weren't just allies or partners. They were soulmates, bound by destiny and choice alike. The final battle for Zithra was fierce and unrelenting, but fueled by hope and unity, the rebels emerged victorious. Queen Silvara's reign crumbled beneath the weight of her own greed and cruelty, leaving behind a fractured yet resilient kingdom ready to rebuild. As the dust settled and peace slowly returned to Earthes, Lyria ascended to the throne, not as a ruler, but as a servant of her people, dedicated to restoring harmony and justice. And beside her, steadfast and proud, stood Rylan. Once a soldier adrift in the vastness of space, he had found purpose and love in the most unexpected place. Their wedding was a celebration unlike any other, blending the traditions of Earth and Earthes into a breathtaking tapestry of culture and unity. Held beneath the open skies, surrounded by friends, allies, and the glittering stars above, Lyria and Rylan exchanged vows that transcended worlds. She wore a gown woven from shimmering threads that caught the light like stardust, while he donned ceremonial armor adorned with symbols of both Earth and Earthes. As they sealed their union with a hug, cheers erupted from the crowd, echoing across the land. It wasn't just the joining of two individuals. It was a testament to the power of love, trust, and the belief that even in the darkest of times, light could prevail.